Um, what was kind of the process in narrowing it down to her to being that first option? And then also, can you speak on the backcourt with her and Kennedy and Courtney? I mean, obviously the talent and then the personalities there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, holy cow. I've been through, this is my 6th draft in the WNBA, and this was the most unpredictable draft I've quite frankly ever been a part of. We had a lot of fun in the war room here, seeing what teams were going to do and kind of team strategies were, and so I think with Aerie, we were very much in a best available situation. We just really felt like, the combination of who she is, how she plays, the pace that she plays, the energy that she plays with, the defensive side of the ball. Everybody who knows me knows, as much as I value offense and want us to be good offensively, that, I have kind of a defensive mindset. And, so I think it was a little bit of everything with her. We certainly knew she was a great player. And we knew she was a great player before the NCAA tournament when the world realized how good she was. So this wasn't a recency bias where just the fact that she played well in the NCAA tournament impacted us. I watched her play in the Pac-12 tournament 2 years ago. My assistant Mike watched her a year ago. We just think she's a player that plays with energy, that can play at the pace that we want to play at, can defend the way we want to defend. And, looking long term, we just thought she was someone that can play with Kennedy, and can do a lot of different things on both sides of the ball.
Great. Next question is from Spencer Nussbaum from The Next. Go ahead, Spencer.
Hi, Coach. I'm curious if you could talk about what the pre-draft conversations with Aerie looked like, and how much those conversations kind of played into your decision to draft her.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We had a lot of pre-draft conversations. This was a draft, I've told people a year ago, we very much zeroed in on needing a point guard and really focused on Ty Harris and Kennedy Carter. This was different. This was different for us. I think when I would like to say of the first 15 picks, but the way, the picks balanced out, I think I talked to between international and American players, like about 15 players, as well as agents and coaches. And, you can't find a bad thing. No one will say a bad word about Aerie, from Adia Barnes to Mike Neighbors and former assistants that coached her, to her agent, which obviously that's no surprise, but I think she's touched so many people. And so I think it was a part of it. I think when going into this draft, it was about depth, it was about future, it was about character. She checks all those boxes. Great family, situation, engaged, just very level-headed person, very mature in her approach to the game, leads when she needs to lead, follows when she needs to follow, my bad. And, I think just will do whatever it takes to help a team win.
Next question is from Emmanuel Glaze from the Crush Sports Talk. Go ahead, Emmanuel.
What's going on, Coach? How much did Aerie, I want to make sure I say her name correctly, Aerie, how much was she on the radar prior to the NCAA run? How much did that run help her and put her on your radar after that great run that she had in the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's someone we've been watching for a couple years. We thought she was going to come out a year ago and would have been in that mix of players that we were talking about. But I think the combination of her stress fracture that she dealt with was a big part of what brought her back to Arizona for her senior year. And so we've been watching her very closely for a couple years. I think that there were times that probably, this group that she played with, it was such an amazing run. But it was a team that she had to take a lot of difficult shots. She had to take a lot of late shot clock shots. And so, I think there were times in the season where she didn't look as good as she's capable of looking. And so obviously the NCAA tournament spotlighted, all that she can do. Is she a 50% 3-point shooter? Probably not. Is she a 28% 3-point shooter? Probably not, so we feel like she's probably somewhere in between. But when you're forced to take tough shots, when you're forced to take late shot clock type shots, you just can't always rely on the percentages as analytical as we can be. So it certainly impacted us. You saw her leadership, you saw the fun that she played with, the energy that she played with. And anyone that knows my team, that knows Atlanta, that knows who we are, knows that all those things matter to us.
Questions for Jacob Roth from CBS 26. Go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, hey coach. You've already got a really deep backcourt with Tiffany coming back and Kennedy and Courtney, and now you add Ari. So how do you expect her to fit in with those other three players in your backcourt?
I mean, time will tell. Camp will play out. I think certainly we always felt like there was no obvious position for us to draft. I feel like with the depth in the backcourt, I feel like we also have the same depth in the front court. So there was no obvious, this is what we have to have, because if we don't, we're going to have a hole. So, I think some of it just has to play out. How does she fit in? Is she just best in special situations? Is she going to come in and be someone that's so invaluable that she's going to get a lot of minutes early? I mean, that's going to be earned, and that's the exciting part of professional sports is, there's not a lot of rosters that you can walk into and just play. And Kennedy was in a unique situation a year ago. Not only in the fact that, we brought her in thinking she would challenge Renee Montgomery, but then with Renee opting out, kind of walking into that starting role. So that's not usual in this league. So she's going to have to earn her minutes. But we feel like when we look at, how this team plays, that she'll fit in. When we look at, knowing we have a lot of free agents a year from now, when you look at Strickland being a free agent and Hayes being a free agent and Courtney Williams being a free agent and Odyssey Sims being a free agent and Shatori Walker-Kimbrough being a free agent, like we had to build our backcourt, towards the future, not knowing with this new CBA, whether we were going to be able to keep everybody. So it's kind of a nod to the future, but I think she's one of those players that will do anything we ask of her. And so if it's to pick somebody up 94 feet from the basket and guard someone hard and be in that, she's going to do that. If we ask her to facilitate, she's going to facilitate. So I think the personality that she has, how she plays, kind of fits into looking now, but also looking forward.
Next questions from Alex Glaze from 11 Live. Go ahead, Alex.
Hey, Nicki, just wondering if you could kind of peel back the curtain maybe a little bit more. You mentioned how you've been kind of watching Ari for a couple of years now. Just what was that moment? Was there a moment where you're either watching her play or, a moment maybe in a huddle or something where, you saw the leadership kind of sticking out where you were like, yeah, she can be one of the leaders on my team. That's who I want on my team. What was that moment?
I don't know if there was one moment. I watched Ari play, going back to, I was a huge Kelsey Plum fan at Washington, watching her 50, 40, 90 season. And, Ari was such an impact as a freshman on that team, as good as Osahor was and Walton was and Plum were for that Final Four team. Ari was so important to that team. And so there were parts of her game that we saw then. If you look at her 3-point statistics then, you can see that, given the ability to take good shots and uncontested shots, she's probably a better percentage shooter than her career statistics say. And so I don't think there was one point. I think it was the body of work. I think it was watching her game in and game out. And certainly watching her in the NCAA tournament was special. And, she became the belle of the ball. She earned every second of that, whether it was the shot she made or how she guarded, Paige from Connecticut. She showed herself, she showed her emotion. And, I just, as a 5'5" former point guard, I don't feel like she's too short. I think I always say, we're vertically challenged, but if you have heart, she's so fast. We're not going to ask her to guard 6-foot players, but I can tell you this about her. I think if you ask her to guard a 6-foot player, she'd get on top, she'd fight like heck, because that's kind of who she is as a player. I think she really is all about winning. And, when you talk to coaches who've coached her, and Adia Barnes, just can't say enough good things about like just who she is as a person. And that's important. I mean, we don't talk enough sometimes about culture at this level, but good teams have good culture, and that starts in the locker room.
Next question's from Jamila Johnson. Go ahead, Jamila.
Hey, Coach. You guys also chose Raquel and Lindsay. And what goes into your mind, or what's the mindset when you're choosing, 15th and 27th picks?
Yeah, I mean, certainly Raquel was just a personal favorite of mine. I mean, I've watched her play with Tiffany Hayes and Maite Cazorla over in Spain. I watch probably as much international basketball as anyone. So I've watched her play with Valencia all season long. And the more I watched her, the more I think she's got, I know she's not quite as tall as Emma Miesemann, but she moves like her. She never takes a bad shot. She has range to the 3-point line. She's 19 years old, and ironically, she wanted to come over to college here, had an offer at Arizona, came over and visited, almost went to Arizona, and then was offered a 5-year deal with Valencia. And so it felt a little, a lot like going to college, because it was a long-term deal. So I think she's someone that, won't come over this season. She will be training with the Spanish national team through Eurobasket and then the Olympics. Whether she makes their final roster, I think, is to be determined. But we kind of knew at 19 what she's capable of. I feel like when I watch her play, she makes good decisions. She makes open shots. She makes her teammates better. And if you watch the Euro Cup semis, she had 22 points and 8 rebounds in that game. If you watch the finals, they ran a tip play to her with 1.1 seconds to go. She caught and tried to finish in the same play, got fouled, and made 2 free throws down 1 to win the basketball game, and that's a really high level. I think she's a player that doesn't quite know how good she is. And I love her humbleness. I just think she's got a bright future ahead of us, but she will not join us this year. She'll be an addition in 2022. And I think when you look at rosters and roster spots and what it looks like, there's not a lot of players that can make teams outside the first round. So this was just a really, really good draft and stash opportunity, and one I'm really excited about because I think she has a bright future. Lindsey Pulliam was just a player. Like I said, this draft was crazy. Lindsey Pulliam, I think as a junior was probably one of those players, high on people's list for Big Ten Player of the Year. A really good mid-range player. Has made threes. Probably dropped because she's a little streaky. Has huge games, and then in the NCAA tournament really struggled from the field. Will get to the foul line. Will play hard. Have known Joe McEwen a really, really long time. And, he speaks incredibly highly of her as a person, how hard she plays. So I think someone that, will challenge us in camp, and will have a chance to prove herself.
Next question's from Ikiri Thomas from Chicks in the Sports. Go ahead, Ikiri.
Hi, Coach. Can you speak on your mindset?
Hey there, girl.
Hi. Can you just speak on your mindset and eagerness to start this new season with the team and, of course, with Erie, and finally playing at home at the new arena?
Yeah, I think that's the most exciting part of it. I mean, we can't pretend that the pandemic has disappeared or we're not in the middle, of COVID. But I think the idea of getting back to a real training camp, even if it means, a bunch of COVID testing, is exciting for us. We really missed out on that opportunity a year ago. A year ago it was, new logo and new arena and a new team. And so we were so excited about that. And it's almost like that got put on hold for a year. And so, we still have that same excitement, that same energy. We're excited to be back in front of fans, even if it's limited to some degree. I'm excited for our players to get back to playing in front of friends and family and fans and people that have supported them throughout their career. And so, Ari's a part of that, and Lindsay's a part of that. And, the players we sign in free agency, Tiana and Odyssey and Shitori and, you know, it's just Cheyenne. Like, we're just excited to get on the court with them. We're excited to build with them, you know, because I think we've got a team that, you know, given the right energy, the right attention to detail, can compete with any team in this league.
Okay, last few questions here. We'll go to Donnie Woods from World Exposure. Go ahead, Donnie.
Thanks for being on tonight, Coach. Donnie Woods with World Exposure Report. Can you talk about a little bit? I know Natasha Mack went right after Raquel. Maybe the thought process of why picking Raquel in front of Natasha Mack. I know, you know, Raquel has a little bit better range than Mack. Thought maybe if that was the part of the mindset of it, or if you could dive a little bit more into that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we've watched Mac really hard this year. I mean, had a great conversation on the phone with her. Incredibly humble person. Just really loves the game of basketball. You know, we call her a player that's really good at the 4 R's. She runs, she rebounds, she rim protects, and she can roll. I think right now, limited range probably, but certainly with her athleticism has a chance in this league. For us, we just looked at it as it was just going to be really hard to make our roster this year. And, you know, Elizabeth Williams does those things as well as anybody in this league in terms of running and rim protecting and, you know, being all defensive. And so, you know, we just wanted something different. And we just didn't think, you know, at that spot that we were going to have someone that had a realistic shot at making our roster. So for us, it was an opportunity to take someone with a bright future that's 19, that can, you know, as the season's gone along, she's proven that she can make the three. She just never takes a bad shot. She's so efficient. She's efficient in her movements and her cutting. You know, she passes up on shots to get her teammates better shots. And so she's so good, really separating off of screens and understands the game. And so, you know, that was the differentiation for us. I mean, we liked Mac. We just didn't think anyone we took at that spot had a realistic shot to make our team. So, you know, we were looking at the future.
We'll go back to Brandon Sedge from the AJC. Go ahead, Brandon.
Kind of following up on that a little bit. I mean, did you kind of have Carrera there penciled in for the second round the whole time because of that long-term goal and the
Yes.
objective of okay.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah, that was, you know, something that I'd identified. I did not think she would, if you look at how the draft played out, I did not think she would be there at 27. And I just really think when you see a player, you know, anybody that enjoys Emma Mieseman's game, I'm not suggesting it's like saying someone's like Lauren Jackson or whatever. It's just a hard act to follow, but certainly I see pieces of her game that remind me of Emma Mieseman, you know, and so that's who I see in her. And I think with growth and time, you know, she's someone who wants to play in this league. And that's part of this European experience. You know, I think as our league grows, I think the CBA has created larger salaries. You know, we may see more European players playing here consistently. But right now, the question is, you know, when you look at a Maria Vadiva, you know, who played here as a rookie and we haven't seen her since, who's a really talented player, you know, with Russia. I mean, the question is always going to be with them, will they be here consistently? And I think she's someone that wants to. It doesn't mean that FIBA doesn't get in the way and the Spanish national team doesn't get in the way. But I think someone that can really develop into a really special player.
Back to Spencer Nussbaum from the Nets. Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, I know you don't necessarily draft to sell tickets, but it's hard to say your backcourt doesn't at least get a little more exciting. With Ari coming in, could you just talk about the energy she brings to the team and just to the Atlanta fan base?
Sure. I mean, obviously, if we were in Phoenix, I think we'd probably sell more tickets. I think fan base has grown exponentially from their WNIT, you know, postseason championship run. I think they've really done a good job of supporting them. But I think certainly, you know, I hope that the women's basketball watched the NCAA tournament and saw her play will come out. And I think we already think if you don't think that Kennedy Carter's exciting or Courtney Williams is exciting or Tiffany Hayes is exciting, then I don't know what kind of women's basketball fan you are, because they do play fast. They play with a ton of energy. They play with emotion, and I think that's a big part of the fan experience. So, I think she adds to that. And I think you see how much she cares about the game. She cares about her teammates. She cares about the fans. And so I'd like to believe she'll sell a ticket or two, whether we're limited this year or not. I think going forward, I think she obviously, with her size and how hard she plays, will be a fan favorite.
And we'll go back to Jacob Roth from CBS 46 for the last question. Go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, coach, this is more behind the scenes type question, but I don't know how much ownership typically has input when you're going in the pre-draft process. But now Renee Montgomery is one of your co-owners. So I was wondering if she was involved at all in how you were formulating your draft plan and what kind of input she might have had.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, ownership takes as much a part as they want to. I think that in this case, Renee was more of a fan, and excited about the process, excited about being a part of it, excited about being in the war room, but certainly didn't give any pointers or, any pre-draft knowledge that she would have. Larry, our owner, certainly was involved. He and I had a lot of emails between he and I and our general manager, Chris Yanko. And so I think, they were definitely a part of this decision. But I think for the most part, it always comes down to, this isn't one of those processes that happens in a week or a month. It's something that develops over time. As a staff, we've been watching these players play for multiple years. And so there's that process of who's making the calls. And, sometimes I tend to make the early calls, and then we tend to do Zoom calls as a staff. And, this technology we have now, it's a little bit firing squad-ish, as we get towards the end. Especially if we're really down to a few candidates and trying to differentiate between those candidates. So definitely a part of it. But I think if you ask Renee, she would tell you, she didn't have a ton of input in this, but was excited to be a part of it and see how we do things and, be a part of that war room experience.
All right. Thanks so much, Coach. Appreciate it.
You got it. Good night, you guys.
Thanks, everyone, for joining.